Hi, my name is Mason. I'm 33 years old, and I honestly believed I'd stumbled into the kind of love story people post with sparkly filters and sappy acoustic music. Tall order for a self-described computer guy from Clifton, Ohio. But that's how it felt the night I met April. Before we get too deep, I'm curious. Have you ever dated someone who looked perfect on paper yet whispered tiny warnings you decided to ignore? Drop your story below. I'd love to see if I'm the only one who kept hitting snooze on the alarms. Most days you'll find me tucked behind a rack of blinking switches at Crestview Technologies, patching outages or explaining, again, why giving Chad in sales admin rights is a terrible idea. The paycheck, about 82 grand with decent benefits, covers rent on my two-bedroom, keeps my 2019 Subaru serviced, and leaves enough to sock away in savings like my dad drilled into me. I don't splash cash around. My wardrobe consists of 5 polos in rotating earth tones, and my idea of a big night out is double stacking burritos during buy one get one. So picture me at Dylan's housewarming, craft beers sweating on the counter, indie playlist humming, Chicago-style pizza boxes everywhere. I was hiding in the kitchen, nursing a ginger ale, when the party's gravitational center walked in April Adams, marketing coordinator at a chic downtown agency with exposed brick, cold brew on tap, and apparently a dress code requiring her to look magazine-ready at all times. She had honey blonde hair in one of those effortlessly messy buns that probably takes 40 minutes, a laugh that floated above the chatter, and the confidence of someone who's had ring light training. She caught me scrolling through server logs on my phone, classic party move, and smiled. "You're literally the only person here not angling for my attention," she said, leaning against the fridge. "So naturally you've got mine." That cracked me up. I mumbled something about uptime reports being easier to understand than people, and somehow that kicked off a 2-hour conversation. She asked about subnetting as if it were riveting. I asked about her job, and she painted a picture of brainstorming sessions fueled by lavender lattes and bold color palettes. When she slipped her number into my hand and said, "Text tomorrow, late morning, so I know you're interested but not desperate," my heart did a victory lap. The next day at exactly 10:01 a.m. I sent, "Hey, hope your head's not regretting those spiked seltzers." We grabbed Ty that weekend and the fairytale edit began. April loved documenting everything. The hipster curry bowls, the mural we posed in front of, the artsy Polaroid of our hands almost touching. She tagged me, I blushed, and her 12,000 followers chimed in with heart-eye reactions. Dadding a social media natural felt like riding shotgun in a convertible, wind in your hair, sun on your face, and just enough speed to ignore the fact that fuel lights are blinking. Whenever April planned outings, I picked up the tab more often than not. She'd wave her phone, explaining she needed fresh content. "My audience loves upscale brunch. It's research, babe." I'd laugh and slide my card across the table. A little expensive, sure, but worth it to see her eyes light up right. There were small warnings even then. After our third date, she play-scolded me for wearing the same navy button-down twice. "Consistency in your wardrobe is adorable, but my grid needs variety." I shrugged it off. What did I know about Instagram aesthetics? When my Subaru needed new tires, I suggested postponing a weekend in Lakeview. She frowned. "The cabin has perfect sunrise views. We can't pass that up." I bought the tires and booked the cabin. 6 months in, she invited me to her agency's rooftop mixer. Everyone greeted her with cheek kisses and references to campaigns I'd seen on billboards. A creative director in neon glasses asked how I tolerated life in the fluorescent trenches of it. I joked that blinking LEDs were my disco lights. April squeezed my arm and laughed, maybe a little too loudly, then pulled me aside and whispered, "Network engineers are cool. You just need better framing." At the time, it felt like encouragement. She cared about my image. Only later did I realize she cared about her image of me. Home life drifted into a routine. Weekday dinners where she snap-staged the plate before we could eat. Friday happy hours at whatever spot had the prettiest cocktails. Saturday afternoons where I fixed her Wi-Fi while she filmed haul videos. She'd pout whenever I wore the dad sneakers she despised, so I swapped them for pricier trainers she picked out. My buddies ribbed me, "Dude, those cost more than your GPU," but I waved them off. Relationships are compromise, right? Around our first anniversary, April hinted about rings while we browsed a downtown art fair. She snapped a photo of a vendor's handcrafted diamond set and nudged me. "That's exactly the vibe, vintage but still shines." I nodded, my pulse pounding at the price tag. That night I opened a new savings sub-account labeled Project Aurora, my code name for April's dream proposal, and tightened my belt everywhere else. Meal prepped bean chili, skipped Comic-Con. Uninstalled 3 gaming subscriptions. April, for her part, kept our weekends booked with photogenic escapades. She thanked me with kisses and boomerangs of us clinking champagne flutes. Looking back, the first glaring red flag smacked me at a family barbecue. My dad pulled me aside, meat tongs in hand. "Son, she's sweet, but make sure you two talk about money. Shared values matter long term." April overheard and laughed, sipping sparkling rosé. "Don't worry, Mr. Morgan, I keep Mason on his budgeting game." Dad grinned, but later said, "Funny, she never asked what you value besides saving." I shrugged. Dad's worry. But the comment that should have set off sirens came one rainy Tuesday after work. I just bought us takeout pho and mentioned maybe going camping instead of hitting Miami for Labor Day. April poked at her noodles and mused, "Sure, but beach pics get way more engagement than tents." She spun it as half joke, half marketing insight, yet the way she prioritized likes over memories left me uneasy. Still, I rationalized. Everyone's got their thing, and hers was a curated feed. Who was I to judge? Here, what I've learned, first lesson of many. When someone repeatedly puts perception above connection, pay attention. Love grows in quiet spaces, not in comment sections. At the time, I clung to the fairy tale, convinced that once the wedding planning dust settled, we'd nestle into something real and steady. Instead, the subtle money chatter picked up speed like coins rolling toward a drain. She'd swipe through apartment listings that blew past my budget, sighing, "These crown molding units would photograph beautifully." At brunch with her friends Miranda and Kayla, she bragged, "Mason, considering a management role, bump in salary equals bump in lifestyle." I smiled awkwardly, not sure when I'd said that. April adored grand gestures. She posted a slow-motion reel of me bringing her coffee during a snowstorm, captioned, "He's a keeper, keeps me caffeinated." Sweet enough, until she added hashtags about provider energy that racked up likes. Provider energy had a nice ring, but it etched a silent expectation. And I ignored the itch in my gut because the dopamine rush of her affection was hypnotic. If you're nodding along, thinking of your own, it's probably nothing. Moments take stock now. I promise the small stuff snowballs. The day she visited my office to drop off lunch, after first ensuring the cafe's logo faced the camera, she scanned the fluorescent cubicles and asked, "Isn't there a higher floor with windows? Feels more executive." My coworkers teased me later and I laughed it off, but a part of me wilted. My job kept servers alive for half the Midwest, yet suddenly it sounded second tier. Still, evenings on the couch were genuine. She'd curl against me, scrolling TikTok while I fine-tuned a home lab router. Sometimes she'd glance up and brush my hair back, murmuring, "My analytical man," like it was a charm. And for a while, that was enough to drown out doubts. The engagement happened on a blistering August afternoon at Cedar Lake Pier. I knelt, sweaty hands clutching a ring that cost almost 3 months of trimmed-down living. April gasped, watery eyes reflecting sunset, and said yes before I finished my rehearsed speech. She posed our clasped hands against the sky, captioned, "He asked." I said always, and tagged every local wedding vendor within 50 miles, likes poured in. So did the expenses, venue tour, dress consultations, tasting menus. When I suggested a modest guest list, she hummed, "But bigger weddings create bigger memories." Translation, better content. In quieter moments, I worried aloud about budgets. April would kiss my cheek and say, "Relax, Mason, you're the king of spreadsheets, we'll make it work." She wasn't wrong. I optimized every dollar, moved numbers, trimmed discretionary spending to near zero. If I felt resentment simmer, I squashed it. Love requires sacrifice, right? I'd love to tell you that I spotted the cliff ahead and slammed the brakes then and there. Truth is, I kept driving, music up, windows down, ignoring the warning signs. The fairy tale highlights were so shiny. Her surprise birthday scavenger hunt for me, the time she cheered my recreational softball game like it was the World Series, the night we slow danced in the living room under Christmas lights because a blizzard canceled our dinner reservation. But every bright scene had a hush-hush invoice attached, financial or emotional. One crisp February evening, as we browsed save-the-date templates, April said something that barely registered in the moment. "Weddings are brand launches for couples, you know? First impressions matter." Brand launches, couples. I laughed, choosing a minimalist font, but later that phrase replayed in my head like a stuck track. Here's the takeaway I wish I had embraced sooner. If your partner speaks about marriage the way marketers talk about product rollouts, pause. Evaluate whether you're building a life together or propping up a facade. Because facades crack, and when they do, everything behind them comes spilling out. I didn't know it yet, but the plaster around our picture-perfect story was already starting to crumble. And the first deep fissure would appear on a live stream that changed everything. The night it all detonated started like any other weeknight. Comfort, leftovers, and the sweet silence that descends when two people pretend their calendars finally line up. April said she was heading to Empower Hour at her coworker Madeline's loft, supposedly an evening of sheet masks, mocktails, and career pep talks. She kissed me at 6:38 p.m., snapped a mirror selfie for her stories, and floated out in leggings that cost more than my monthly phone bill. I waved, slid a frozen pizza into the oven, and queued up a co-op session of that space engineer game I used to unwind. 40 minutes later, controller in hand, I noticed something odd. My phone hadn't chimed once with April's usual flood of "look what we're doing" updates. No boomerang of clinking kombucha bottles, no clip of them squealing over exfoliating serums, not even the obligatory girl gang shot. For a woman who'd post a sunrise before the sun actually came up, radio silence was unnerving. Curiosity nibbled. On impulse, I logged into an ancient TikTok burner account I'd created to test a work project, blank avatar, nonsense username. I searched her handle and there it was, a live stream titled Boss Babes and Bubble Masks with maybe 53 viewers. My thumb hovered. I almost talked myself out of tapping because relationships need trust, right? But a quiet voice said, Mason, people who value trust don't disappear from their own feed. I tapped. The camera sat propped on a scented candle, giving a wide-angle view of Madeline's tastefully cluttered living room. Fairy lights draped over exposed beams, aesthetic snack boards on the coffee table, and three women in matching clay masks sipping rosé from stemless glasses. April reclined center stage, robe tied just loosely enough to show off her Pilates shoulders. Madeline on her left, Kayla on her right, all of them glowing under soft ring light halo. Madeline read comments out loud. At Jen Runs says, "Show us the ring again." April fluttered her manicured fingers, letting the diamond catch the light. Kayla giggled. Our girl snagged herself a stable one. They all laughed the practiced laugh of people who rehearse being carefree. A comment flashed, how's wedding planning with Mr. IT? Madeline leaned toward the mic. Yeah, April, is Mason deep diving spreadsheets or letting you handle the aesthetics? April rolled her eyes in slow motion. Mason is, how do I phrase this, financially safe. That's really his core competency. The others hooted. My stomach pricked, but I breathed maybe a poorly phrased joke. Then Kayla chimed in. But he paid for that rock, babe, give him props. April lifted her glass like a toast. Because I walked him through it. I literally dragged him to the jeweler and said, this one size 6, don't cheap out. He took forever to save, just finance it like a normal person. The chat flooded with laughing emojis. My pulse thudded in my ears. Another comment, so after the wedding you'll be set, huh? April wagged her finger. No, he's step one. I get the security, launch my brand consultancy, and if we evolve in different directions, she shrugged dramatically. People grow apart. Madeline clapped. Kayla squeaked. Level up season. The three bumped glasses. I froze, controller slipping to the carpet. April's words replayed like an error message. He's step one. People grow apart. The cruelty wasn't loud, just casual, like ordering a side salad. That hurt more. A viewer asked, does he know you're joking? April smirked straight into the lens. He's probably grinding some spaceship game. He won't see this. She sang my name in a cartoon voice, Maasin, and pulled a mock pout. The room erupted. Here's the thing about shock. It isn't fireworks, it's underwater stillness. I started screen recording almost automatically, IT reflex, then watched another 2 minutes that felt like 2 hours, them rating honeymoon resorts by Instagrammability, joking about upgrading my wardrobe once the joint account drops, predicting which vendor discounts they could squeeze with my tech dude credit. I closed the app. The apartment around me felt foreign, like I'd woken up in a replica missing subtle details. The oven beeped, the pizza smelled suddenly nauseating. I sat on the couch, phone face down, eyes fixed on nothing. A question swam up. If someone tells the world who they are, how many angles do you need before you believe them? I couldn't answer. Maybe you can. Have you ever ignored words you knew were true because accepting them would shatter too much? Midnight rolled in. April texted, miss you already, with a heart I couldn't feel. I didn't reply. Instead, I lay awake, ceiling spinning, cataloging every small dismissal I'd waved off. The eye rolls when I suggested leftovers, the jokes about corporate casual when I wore clearance khakis, the way she'd post a picture of us but crop out my favorite cap because it was on brand. Each memory clicked into place like stubborn puzzle pieces revealing a picture I hated. The next morning she breezed in wearing athleisure priced like formal wear, phone glued to her palm. Morning, love, last night was iconic. She air-kissed my cheek and started prepping her kale smoothie, Bluetooth speaker blasting upbeat affirmations. I watched the absurd normalcy and felt an odd calm settle. Some part of me detached, observing. Here stands a man who just learned he's not a partner but a pivot on someone else's ladder. I asked how Empower Hour went. She waved a hand. Productive, we're scheming a podcast spin-off, female founder vibes. No mention of the live. Why would she? From her viewpoint, the broadcast evaporated into the cybersphere, safe from my analog boyfriend eyes. Cool, I said, voice steady. I queued a documentary if you want to chill tonight. She barely looked up. Maybe, depends on brand calls. Oh, can you Venmo me half for the bridesmaid proposal boxes? They'll trust the purchase more if it comes from my account. I nodded, appending that request to the mental ledger now glowing neon. As she left for a bar class, she tossed, "Love you, Maz." I responded in kind, automatic, hollow. The door closed, silence fell, and the calm crystallized into resolve. Not rage, not heartbreak, just clarity. Whatever spell her sparkle cast was broken by the unfiltered arrogance of a live stream. Here's the takeaway I chewed on over black coffee. Love without respect is performance, and you're the stagehand getting splinters. The sooner you exit, the sooner the curtains fall. That realization stings, but it sets you free. I copied the recording to encrypted cloud storage, dropped screenshots into a folder labeled Reality Check, and backed it all up twice. Habits die hard. I drafted a simple text to my closest friend Declan. Need to grab a beer tomorrow, big talk. My fingers hovered over send, but I paused. Sharing pain while it's raw can cement the hurt. Maybe I needed one more night to square my shoulders first. Instead, I opened a blank spreadsheet, comfort zone, and started mapping finances, joint savings, deposits, whose name was on what. Cold data helped me breathe. That evening, April FaceTimed from Madeline's office, giddy about sponsorship leads. By the way, she said, can you email the florist? They're slow confirming upgrades. I promised I would. I did not mention that within the hour I'd request our quote and deposits under my solo email. Detachment felt surgical, steady hands, clear objective. Reflection moment for you. When a line is crossed, do you fight in the moment or step back to strategize? Drop a comment. There's no wrong answer, but the path you choose defines the outcome. I spent the next 2 days in quiet observation, like someone watching a building he knows is condemned but hasn't told the occupants. April scrolled through seating chart apps on the couch, complaining about my reluctance to add her influencer mutuals to the guest list. I smiled, asked follow-ups, saved mental notes. The distance between my expression and my thoughts could have spanned continents. Thursday afternoon, a stray remark sealed my plans. She waved an email notification. Venue payment schedule, second deposit hits next week. I said we'd review the budget this weekend. She laughed, Mason, don't sweat the small stuff. Security is your superpower. She meant financial security, but the phrase tasted like rust. That night I watched the screen recording once, alone in the dark, volume low. I forced myself not to flinch, not to fast forward. My heart didn't drop this time, it hardened. And I decided, no confrontation, no shouting match, no public dragging. She craved spectacle, I would give her emptiness. Lesson 2, scribbled in my journal at 2:17 a.m. Revenge feeds on emotions, but freedom thrives on facts. Gather them, act on them, and let silence do the talking. Friday morning, as she filmed a What I Eat in a Day segment in our kitchen, I stepped outside to call the wedding coordinator. Hypothetical scenario, I began. If the event transferred to another client, would the deposit be recoverable? Her careful reply told me enough. Next call went to my bank, then the travel agent, then the landlord. By dusk, a blueprint existed for a life without April. Accounts segregated, deposits reclaimable, a furnished studio across town on hold. All that remained was timing, and timing would be perfect because April's big marketing summit, an all-day affair with zero phone access, was coming up in 5 days. Fortune, as they say, favors the prepared. One final question for you, friend. If you discovered someone reduced you to a stepping stone, would you give them a chance to explain, or would you step away first and process later? I'd love to hear your philosophy, because by next week I would be putting mine to the ultimate test, quietly, decisively, and without a single dramatic post. The internet wouldn't see it coming, but then again, neither would April. 5 days can feel like a lifetime when every sunrise is a countdown. The morning after I drafted my spreadsheet war plan, I shut off the alarm before it buzzed and slipped out of bed without waking April. She lay there in full REM, hair fanned across the pillow, face as serene as an angel's. Proof, I guess, that a clean conscience and a clear conscience aren't always the same thing. I brewed coffee extra quietly, then opened my laptop to a stark white grid already populated with numbers and action items. If you've ever orchestrated a secret pivot, new job, sudden move, fresh start, tell me, what was the very first line on your to-do list? Mine read, reclaim the future. Step 1 meant unraveling the wedding. Lakeshore Hall had our date penciled in, along with a non-refundable 12% processing fee and a chunky deposit that came straight from my savings. I called at 9:02 a.m., rehearsed apology ready. The manager, Kendra, answered with the chipper tone of someone fueled by espresso and Pinterest boards. I introduced myself, thanked her for her help so far, and leaned into candor without airing the dirty laundry. Circumstances changed, I said. I'd like to transfer the booking. She sighed, recited policy, then hesitated when I added, I can supply written consent from both parties, or alternately, documentation that continuing would cause financial duress. No threats, just steady facts. A brief hold music loop later, she granted a full refund minus that processing fee, money to hit my account within 30 days. It felt like a breath I'd been holding since I slipped the ring on April's finger. Next call, Sunwave Getaways, the travel firm brokering our Santorini honeymoon. Flexible cancellation up to 60 days out. Check. One polite email and a digital signature, and $8,000 of flight and villa costs vaporized from my credit card balance. 2 dominoes down, several to go. I spent lunch in the bank lobby beneath recessed lights that made everyone's skin look vaguely tired. My banker, Lauren, had helped me refinance student loans a year earlier. She greeted me with that familiar conspiratorial whisper bankers reserved for sensitive requests. I laid out the situation in dry bullet points. Joint savings originally funded 80% by me, automated transfers from my paycheck only. Could we partition it without triggering alarms? She pulled statements, traced deposits, and nodded. Within an hour, my contributions lived in a newly minted personal account across town at Crest River Credit Union. No shared logins, no linked cards. The remaining $4,000 stayed put, every cent April's. My hands shook as I signed the final form, but not from fear. It felt like sealing an airlock before stepping into space. Serene, weightless, irreversible. That afternoon, I ducked into a carking cafe, ordered a mug of drip brew I barely touched, and drafted messages. To our florist, Willow and Vine, please hold on further customizations. Family emergency will follow up next week. To the photographer, rescheduling shoot, dates TBD. To the DJ, silence for now. Cancellation windows varied, I'd hit each with precision timing. If the detail work sounds clinical, that's intentional. Precision keeps panic at bay. Quick sidebar lesson, when emotions threaten to hijack your steering wheel, lean into process. Checklists let your brain breathe. By dusk, I returned home to find April sprawled on the couch filming an unboxing of elevated electrolyte drops. She flashed me a quick smile over the phone camera, mouthed date night later, and returned to influencer mode. I took that as my cue to inventory the apartment. Anything I'd owned pre-relationship, gaming rig, childhood baseball glove, the cedar dresser my grandfather built, went on the keep list. Joint purchases, even the leather sofa she'd insisted on, would stay. I wasn't there to strip the place bare, just to reclaim what was mine. Tuesday slid by in a haze of normalcy. We argued lightly about guest list counts, her side ballooning with brand contacts, but smoothed it over with sushi and Netflix. She never noticed the silent storm behind my calm nods. That night, after she dozed off mid-episode, I withdrew my name from every subscription service we shared. Her Netflix went dark for precisely one logout cycle before she upgraded to a solo plan. I watched the confirmation email pop into our joint inbox, grinned, and archived it. Wednesday morning brought a small spike in adrenaline. I needed a new address. Craigslist sublets looked bleak until I remembered Cole, a dev ops colleague whose girlfriend had just moved overseas. He'd raved about subletting her furnished loft for cheapish while she was gone. I hit him up during a code deployment lull. Funny timing, Cole said. I've been dreading interviewing random strangers. If you want it, keys are yours Friday, month to month. I Venmo'd him first month's rent before the pull request finished merging. $1,500 secured a sunlit studio with exposed brick, utilities included, fiber internet already humming. The pivot was real now. My reflection in the monitor looked both terrified and free. Reflection question for you. How do you measure freedom? In dollars saved, miles moved, or just the weight off your chest? Drop a thought below. Someone else scrolling might need your metric tonight. Thursday was D-Day for logistics. April's marketing summit kicked off at 7:30 a.m. sharp in the city center. Agenda bragged device-free immersive workshops, music to my ears. She left before dawn, power suit draped in garment bag, heels clicking Morse code of ambition. As her car pulled away, I texted the movers. Green light. Two guys from River City Hall arrived at 8, wearing neon shirts and efficient smiles. I'd labeled every box with bold tape. Office, personal, fragile. Watching them stack my life into a truck felt surreal, like seeing memories rendered in cardboard Tetris. While they loaded, I positioned the engagement ring in a clear ramekin beside the French press she loved, symbolic symmetry. Underneath, I slid a plain white envelope containing receipts for every wedding expense I'd paid solo. No accusatory note, no flourish, just data. By 10:30, the truck pulled into Cole's alleyway. Sun streamed through his loft's massive windows onto a reclaimed wood floor that smelled faintly of lemon polish. As the movers left, I tipped them extra gratitude tax for handling new beginnings and collapsed onto the beat-up leather futon. Silence here sounded different, less like absence, more like possibility. Still, the job wasn't finished. I drove back across town to the leasing office of our old complex. The property manager, Lyle, lifted an eyebrow as I slid the keys across his desk. "Breaking lease?" he asked. I nodded, told him I'd lined up a qualified replacement tenant, my softball buddy Nate. Lyle shrugged. "Paperwork's a breeze if the credit checks out." Nate's credit was solid, fee waived. One more shackle popped open. Phone buzzing. Dylan, my housewarming friend, confirming I could crash on his couch if the sublet fell through. I thanked him, voice catching. Support networks matter. Sometimes you don't realize their strength until you lean in. Back at the loft, I configured Wi-Fi, hooked up my PC, and redirected mail. The simple chore list, screwdriver here, Ethernet cable there, grounded me. Around 4, my stomach reminded me it hadn't seen food since dawn, so I wandered to the corner deli for a turkey wrap and an unhurried soda. Nobody cared what brand of beverage I chose. It tasted like independence. At 5:11 p.m., my phone flashed April's name. I watched, heartbeat steady, as it rang out. Seconds later, another call, then another. Voicemail icons stacked up like falling tiles. I turned the device face down on the counter and fixed myself a second soda. When curiosity finally won, I tapped speaker. "Mason, hey, weird question. Are you running late? Your stuff? Where are your computers? Call me." She sounded amused at first, like I'd organized a scavenger hunt. 2 messages later, amusement morphed into confusion. By the 5th voicemail, higher-pitched, clipped, she'd noticed the ring. The 6th carried a tremor. "This can't be about a silly live stream, right? It was just content. Call me." Here's the moment that surprised me. I felt sympathy, but not enough to surrender my resolve. Empathy doesn't obligate you to self-betrayal. That's a lesson it took me 33 years to learn, and it crystallized right then between swallow and breath. Night unfurled in frantic notifications. She tried FaceTime. She pinged my Steam account, first time she'd ever touched it. She even emailed my work address flagged urgent. I answered none. Instead, I called my mom, gave her the Cliff Notes version, and assured her I was safe. She cried quiet tears of relief, not sorrow, because parents sometimes know a truth you've been avoiding. Around midnight, I scrolled through April's Instagram. A single story, a view of our half-empty living room, shaky caption, "When the person you trust ghosts you IRL." I closed the app, powered off the phone, and lay on the futon staring at the loft's beams until city noises lulled me into the first dreamless sleep I'd had in months. By morning, 24 messages awaited me, ranging from bargaining to rage. She threatened a wellness check, then begged me to talk before people get the wrong idea. The wrong idea. As if the live stream hadn't given the right one, I typed a single sentence, saved it in drafts, and deleted it. Not yet. Instead, I brewed coffee in an unfamiliar kettle, watched sunlight skitter across my desk, and drafted a resignation email, not from my job, but from a role I never signed up for, financial stepping stone. Rereading that sentence hit like cool water. I folded laundry, updated my address with HR, and recalculated my budget. Without April's lifestyle siphon, the numbers looked shockingly healthy. Late afternoon brought a call from the florist, voicemail sweetly concerned. "Just checking in, everything okay?" I thanked her via email, requested the refund form, and wished her a lovely season. Decoupling the last vendor felt anticlimactic, like snipping a thread after the tapestry already lies on the floor. At dusk, I finally pressed send on a message to April. It contained a secure link to the TikTok recording, an itemized list of refunded deposits with transaction IDs, and a single closing line. "I'm choosing self-respect over appearances. I hope one day you do too." No name-calling, no recap of grievances, just a mirror held at eye level. Phone silent, I walked to the riverfront park. Couples strolled past, dogs chased shadows, and a busker strummed an off-key guitar. I sat on a bench, breathing in the metallic tang of autumn coming early, and realized the tightness in my chest had loosened into something like wonder. 3 years of helping love would bloom behind curated snapshots were over. All it took was 5 days, a spreadsheet, and the will to act. Final reflection in case you're mapping your own escape route. Closures aren't built on fury, they're built on boundaries. Set them quietly, guard them fiercely, and when the hour strikes, step across. The world keeps spinning, but suddenly it spins in your favor, and that, believe me, is worth every silent mile you put between who you were and who you decide to become. The first sunrise after I hit send on that final message felt almost suspiciously bright, as though the universe had synced its lighting to my private reset. I drank coffee from a chipped mug found in Cole's cupboard, scrolled past April's name in my notifications without opening anything, and pushed off to work like it was any other Tuesday. But nothing about the week ahead would be ordinary, except perhaps the pattern of consequences crashing exactly where they were earned. By noon, Declan pinged my office Slack. "Dude, your ex is live tweeting a crisis. You good?" I answered with a thumbs-up emoji and turned back to a firewall migration, though curiosity scratched at the back of my mind. Mid-afternoon, I took a break, opened a private browser, and watched the highlight reel of April's unraveling. Someone, maybe a petty viewer, maybe a concerned stranger, had clipped her step-one husband monologue and stitched it side by side with screenshots of my emptied apartment. Under that, a running thread chronicled her frantic Insta stories. Mascara streaked, voice wobbly, blamming, sudden abandonment, and the toxic silence of men who can't handle strong women. The internet, it turned out, thrives on receipts. Commenters posted timestamps from the live, dissected each dismissive remark, and compared it to her current victim narrative. By the end of the day, she'd lost several hundred followers, small in macro terms, but to April, a gut punch louder than any breakup playlist. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt oddly still. Watching someone else's facade crack is like seeing a glass fall in slow motion. The shatter is loud, but the inevitability has been clear since the moment it slipped. My focus slid back to routers and VLANs. Stability, I was learning, can be more exciting than drama once you remember how calm feels. Friday evening delivered the next chapter. I was plates, deep in buffalo wings with Declan and Nate at the sports bar when April's number blazed across my screen. I let it ring out. She tried again, then switched to a new, unrecognized number. After sending both to voicemail, I slipped outside and listened to one, just to be sure there wasn't an emergency. "Mason, I'm drowning. The landlord says rent's past due, my cards are frozen, and everyone thinks I'm some gold-digging monster. I know I made mistakes, but you iced me out. Please, just talk to me so we can clean this up." Her voice cracked on clean, a word she always reserved for Instagram filters and budget spreadsheets she never opened. I saved the voicemail, not out of malice, but because documentation is cheaper than therapy, then rejoined my friends. Declan raised a brow, she begging. "She's realizing gravity works," I said, and Nate clinked his pint against mine. The bar's neon glow washed over us, and for the first time in ages I felt 20-something, not 80-something, under the weight of someone else's expectations. Over the next week, April's life spun faster than an overclocked fan with a busted bearing. Late fees snowballed, her BMW went back to the bank, and the marketing job she'd been courting ghosted her after HR flagged the viral drama. She posted a frantic story about jealous trolls ruining opportunities, but the brand she tagged replied publicly, "We prioritize authenticity. Translation, please take your mess elsewhere." Meanwhile, my own days eased into a rhythm that was borderline boring in the very best way. Up at 6, jogged the Riverside Path, shower, hustle to Crestview Technologies. My boss noticed the uptick in my focus and looped me into client meetings I used to watch from the back row. Without the drain of constant image upkeep, I had mental bandwidth to solve tougher problems. 2 weeks in, he called me into his office and offered interim lead on a high-visibility migration project. "You're steady under pressure," he said. Funny thing, I'd always been steady. I just needed to stop subsidizing someone else's instability to prove it. Nighttimes became experiments in cheap joy. I resurrected a hobby guitar, fingers fumbling rusty chords until calluses regrew. I rejoined a rec softball team, discovered muscle groups long dormant, and hosted low-key game nights where nobody felt obligated to take photos of the snack spread. If any part of me missed April, it was the curated version that never truly existed. more highlight reel than human. Letting that illusion go felt like deleting a bloated app and watching your phone speed up. Of course, silence has a half-life. 3 weeks after my move out, April sent a handwritten letter to Cole's loft, address gleaned from some mutual friend too polite to say no. 4 pages, scented paper, looping script. I've done a lot of soul searching. I understand brand optics blurred my priorities. Can we please meet for coffee so I can apologize properly? She included a Polaroid of us at Cedar Lake Pier, the sunset proposal. My jaw tightened, mostly at the irony that she'd use a photo to appeal to authenticity. I slipped the letter back in the envelope, filed it beside old tax returns, and moved on. A reflection prompt here. Have you ever received an apology that felt more like PR than repentance? How did you respond? Drop your story. Someone scrolling might find your hindsight helpful. October rolled in crisp and bright. Cole's girlfriend extended her exchange program, so the loft became mine through winter, giving me space to plan the next leap. Homeownership. Numbers once cramped by designer brunches and flash sale handbags now smiled back. With deposit refunds restored and my promo-level salary locked, I pre-qualified for a modest 3-bedroom ranch on Maple Hill, the kind of place with a porch swing and enough yard for weekend barbecues. Touring it with the realtor, I ran a hand along the hallway's rough plaster and felt something like trust in my own choices. The night my offer was accepted, I celebrated alone. Takeout pad thai, cheap Riesling, Spotify on shuffle. A note of pride bubbled up, unfamiliar but welcome. I opened my laptop, drafted an email to April's mother, who had always treated me kindly, and explained in calm paragraphs that while I wished her daughter well, reconciliation wasn't on the table. Boundaries, it turns out, sometimes need external clarity too. In November, a recruiter messaged about an IT director role at Orion Analytics, a longtime client known for treating staff like actual humans. I interviewed twice, accepted on the spot, 115,000 plus performance bonuses. First call after signing the offer? Mom, of course. She cried happy tears this time. April, meanwhile, attempted a rebrand, life coach content sprinkled with humble brags about starting over. But follower engagement flagged. Screenshots of her earlier comments surfaced every time she preached integrity, a living case study in digital footprints. She pivoted again, product reviews, thrifting tips, but the algorithm smelled blood. Influence is fickle when it's built on angles, not roots. Winter's first snowfall dusted my soon-to-be driveway the morning I closed on the house. Nate and Declan helped haul in boxes. We christened the place with lukewarm pizza straight from the top of a moving blanket. No curated tablescape, no sponsored candles, just 3 friends ribbing each other and leaving greasy fingerprints on drywall I hadn't painted yet. It felt perfect. Days later, a final email slid into my inbox from April's new address. I know you've moved on, but please read. Inside, a short paragraph. She'd entered therapy, realized performative love isn't love, and thanked me for the mirror I'd held up. She ended with a wish for my happiness, no request attached. I stared at the screen, waiting for anger or satisfaction, but all I felt was neutrality, which is its own kind of victory. I archived the message. Lesson time, in case you're tallying themes. Love that costs you your self-respect is mispriced. If someone's affection feels like a subscription you must keep paying to access basic features, run the cancellation script. You'll be amazed how quickly life loads once the bloatware is gone. 6 months post-break, my new garage smelled of fresh lumber and possibility. I set up a modest workbench, something I'd never had space for, and built a simple maple coffee table. My dad drove up to help sand the edges, humming classic rock under his breath. He paused once, hands dusty, to say, "You look lighter, son." And he was right. Survival mode had receded, replaced by a steadiness eager to invest in tomorrow instead of patching yesterday. Driving back from the hardware store one Sunday, I stopped at a red light beside a glossy black coupe. Latest model, rims polished within an inch of their lives. Behind the wheel sat a guy maybe a few years younger than me, April in the passenger seat. I almost didn't recognize her, minimal makeup, hair pulled into a simple ponytail. Our eyes met. She offered a small, almost shy wave. I lifted 2 fingers from the steering wheel, neither hostile nor inviting, and the light turned green. We drove opposite directions. As the distance closed behind me, an unplanned smile crept in. Not schadenfreude, just gratitude for the strangely precise chain of events that freed both of us to seek what we'd lacked. Me, authenticity. Her, hopefully, humility. The future stretched ahead like fresh asphalt, and for once I wanted to roll the windows down and feel where it might lead. Final reflection before we part ways. When the curtain finally falls on a relationship built on performance, what story will you tell yourself about the role you played? My hope is you make yourself the protagonist, not the prop. If you've been there, or you're there right now, share below how you stepped off the stage and started living in the seats where the real people sit. That's my saga, a glittering love story stripped to its scaffolding, a quiet exit executed with spreadsheets and resolve, a life reconstructed beam by beam. I won't call it a happily ever after. Real life is messier than fairy tales, but it is happy enough to breathe, and maybe that's the better ending anyway. So here's to walking away the moment someone confuses your heart for a debit card, to choosing substance over spectacle, and to the simple, underrated thrill of being the hero in your own feed.